This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, and you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app.
Get charged up for action that'll shock your system.
Tell me that's not cool.
An unstoppable superhero and his crew embark on impossible missions and will bring mutated villains to justice.
When Static's in the house, bad guys better step off.
Pull the plug on crime with the adventures of Static Shock. Yeah!
Welcome, everybody, to episode 332 of the DCAU Review. I am one of your hosts, Cal. With me, my good friend and good brother, our other host, Liam. Liam, after last week's very memorable wrap-up of the exciting two-parter of the Once and Future thing with the Justice League Unlimited, we decided we'd hang out with our future-themed month here as we continue. It's kind of like an inadvertent future month based on our planning. Behind the scenes, you would think this all comes together and it's planned seamlessly, and we've got this planned out for the next several years. But as we pull back the curtain here, it just so happens that this works out perfectly for us as we continue here with a future-based month, kind of building off of what we learned, at least one specific character's future or potential future that we learned in that Once and Future Thing episode. And that is we're heading back to Dakota. Well, not quite Dakota, at least not for very long, for the episode that we're covering this week.
That's right. Dakota comes to Gotham, I guess. I don't know. We'll have to we'll work on the metaphors. But yeah, we are talking about the Static Shock episode, one of the only, I think, crossover episodes we hadn't talked about yet. And that is the episode Future Shock, which, as we'll get into, sees Virgil transported 50 years from now, or maybe about 40 years from now, as Bruce says in the episode, just to really drive the continuity buffs crazy. So Virgil gets to head to the future and find out a little bit about the future Batman and his own future self. So a lot to talk about with Future Shock.
That's right, Liam. But of course, before we get into breaking down this week's episode with our 4 categories of plot, animation, and visuals, music, and voice acting, we will, of course, get the official IMDb synopsis for this week's episode, which is brought to you by, as it is each and every week, The Pod Tower. Head over to youtube.com/The Pod Tower today and subscribe, and you can get access to our entire back catalog. That's right, the entire DCAU catalog, including all prior 331 standard episodes, over 50 bonus episodes, and some tie-in episodes for our spin-off adventures and projects, and much, much more, all in one convenient streaming location. And not only do you get access to our entire podcast library, but you also get the entire podcast library of Tim Talk, which also covered each and every episode of the DCAU, and the ongoing podcasts from the folks over at Watchtower Database, which include their ongoing series, both Intergang, which is an interview-style podcast, as well as the Jump on the Bat-Wagon podcast, which is also currently going through the DCAU. All the DCAU content you could ever want, need, or crave in one convenient streaming location. Head over to youtube.com/The Pod Tower today and subscribe.
That's right. So this is the synopsis for Future Shock, which is written by Stan Berkowitz, directed by Vic Dalzell, or Chalet. Apologize if I'm butchering that. Music by Max Gauss, and animation by Dong Wu. And that synopsis reads as such. After helping the dynamic duo, Static is pulled into the future, where he must help that time's Batman save his future self.
They almost tried to do it again. You didn't hear last week's incredible IMDb synopsis.
One for the books.
Yeah, it was incredible. They tried to go here with that time's Batman. There's a little homage paid there, I feel like. Future.
And also poor sentence structure. heads to the future to help that Batman save his future self. It sounds like he's going to help Batman save Batman's future self. So
Correct.
Pronouns get you in trouble, pal. But overall, it gets the basic job done. But there's a little bit more to it than that, as we'll get into here.
Perhaps a C- is warranted with that. We'll let the listeners this week be the official grader of the IMDb synopsis. But hopefully you will get, if you were not satisfied with that synopsis, you will get a better one as we break down the episode ourselves here, Liam. As we open things up, as you mentioned, or as I mentioned, perhaps, not at all any time spent in Dakota in this week's episode as we open things up with...
We get a minute when he goes to the gas station, but that's it.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, well, at least in the present day Dakota, I should clarify. Present day Dakota is completely missing from this episode, but we see that Static is traveled to Gotham City to help Batman and Robin assist in capturing a criminal named Time Code. So there's a standoff that's happening between the GCPD, including Commissioner Gordon, and this Time Code villain. Batman and Robin are on the case, as is Static, who, with Static's help, able to capture him. We get a little news brief that really breaks things down, kind of gives you the backstory. It's interesting because I almost wish this is Time Code's only appearance on the show. I think that the premise of what his plan was is fascinating. Like, that is a fascinating concept for a story. And I very much wish that we got a story, maybe explored that a little bit more, but I digress. We don't get we aren't so lucky this week, as instead we are then flashed to the Batcave.
This was the scene earlier tonight in Gotham's Bayside district, where police cornered Time Code, an outlaw physicist who planned to make a fortune by helping wanted criminals escape to the future of all places. Unfortunately for Time Code, he couldn't see into his own future. A future that included Batman and his young friends.
His young friends? I don't have a name anymore?
Get me my toolkit, Boy Wonder. And you, be careful with that. It has a glitch.
Hey, the plug's been pulled. Or didn't you notice?
It also has an internal power source. Or didn't you notice?
Just testing. I'll put it down there.
His young friend.
Batman's young friend, Robin. not even called Robin, just Batman's young friend.
Mm-hmm.
Which Robin very much takes offense to and mentions that he doesn't even get a name now in news reports. It's funny because then Batman refers to him as the Boy Wonder. And so Static, Robin, and Batman are all working on Time Code's time machine, which appears to be some sort of chair. It's like a lazy boy that has some time traveling bits on it. So at least Time Code was traveling in comfort, I suppose. But as they begin working on it, Robin and Static are actually having a conversation, as Robin mentions that Batman doesn't have the best manners, and that's a little bit frustrating to him. And Static sort of reminds Robin that, Batman is at least a good mentor to him, and that kind of sets off this bit that we get throughout the episode, this thread that follows Static, where he himself is sort of longing for this mentor type relationship, someone to sort of guide him. And he mentions that at least Robin has a mentor in this case to help him, show him the ropes, whereas Static isn't so lucky.
You're welcome. You learn science from Nobel laureates, martial arts from kung fu masters, and manners from a crocodile.
So he's a little harsh sometimes.
Sometimes.
He's teaching you, making sure you'll be ready for whatever. I think you're kind of lucky. I got it!
No! Stay away!
I can handle it! Hey!
Where'd he go?
Not where. When?
Batman suddenly is captured by a force field that's coming off of this chair, trapped within it, and within this force field. And as he is attempting to escape, Static steps in, attempting to use his powers to free him. Batman warns him to back off, but Static does not listen. He pulls Batman from the field, but instead is swapped into the field himself, and then he himself gets pulled into the future as Robin questions where he went, and Batman, very similar to last week's episode, mentions it's not where, it's when Static is. And at that point, we get our opening credits, and then we see landing in the Batcave. We see Static, who's back where he started, calling out for Batman and Robin. Unbeknownst to him, of course, he is transported, as you mentioned, between 40 and 50 years at this point into the future, depending on what your perception of time is in this place. But as he's calling out, suddenly, who should appear but the future Dark Knight himself, Terry McGinnis, in the Batman suit, very much alarmed that someone is in the Batcave, clearly not recognizing Static. Static says that he's Beyonce in this conversation, which is funny because he says that he's looking for Batman. Terry says that he is Batman, and he says, no, if you're Batman, then I'm Beyonce. So a fight begins, and a fight breaks out between the two of them, which is only broken up by the future Bruce Wayne.
Batman's not going to be happy when he hears how you've been treating his guests, and you really don't want to see Batman unhappy.
First, we don't have guests here. And second, I'm Batman.
And I'm Beyonce.
Well, whoever you are, you don't belong here.
Getting sloppy.
Sloppy, huh?
Need more?
That's enough. There's no time for this. I need you. Both of you.
You know this kid? He says his name's Beyonce.
He's Static.
And at this point, he breaks down that he needs Static's help in order to help this mission that this very secret, top secret mission that he needs assistance with. So that's where we get a little bit of exposition as Bruce explains what's going on. He explains that Static is in the future and that he needs his help to help support Terry on a mission to save a captured hero that is under the capture of the villainous group Kobra, who I believe we met Kobra in the episode with the virus, right? The Batman Beyond episode with the virus. So they have appeared prior, and there's also a upcoming episode of Batman Beyond that we've yet to cover that also tackles the Kobra group itself. But he explains to both the Static viewers that are unfamiliar and Static himself who Kobra is. They're a terrorist organization hell-bent on taking over the world, and the only ones that can stop him are G.I. Joe. Wait, no, that's different Kobra. Sorry, wrong Kobra for this one. This one is a terrorist.
You do have a lot of similarities, to be fair.
Well, this Kobra is spelled with a K. Okay, and the G.I. Joe Cobra is spelled with a C. All right, there's a big difference there. Of
course.
And this Cobra organization is obsessed with snakes, where that Cobra organization's logo is a snake.
I'm not really up on what G.I. Joe Cobra's mission statement was. I assume they were trying to take over the world. But yeah, I feel like maybe the snake is more an aesthetic choice as opposed to this one is more culty, maybe.
Yeah, I think they're just a terrorist organization in G.I. Joe, and their goal was to take over the world, which doesn't seem all that different than this Cobra's goal. But at least in this iteration of Cobra, they have Cobra Leader, which is different than Cobra Commander. So that's how you tell the difference between the two of them. It's subtle, but there is a big difference there. But Batman breaks it all down for Static, letting him know that Cobra's leader has been captured by the government, and they're about to do this prisoner swap, which will allow the person that Cobra has captured to go free. Static doesn't really seem to have any issue with that, and sees that the captured person is going to get set free. Batman very angrily and quickly corrects him and says, well, if this plan goes to work, they get to keep the Cobra leader captured and they get to get the prisoner free if they can step in and complete this mission. So it's very clear Batman has some sort of personal vendetta, which then ultimately leads to us learning the identity of this captured hero. He mentions it's one of their greatest heroes. Static jokes around with Terry a little bit, and then we realize that after Static decides that he's good to go with the mission and is okay to help support them, that the person that they're actually stepping in to save, Liam, is none other than Static's future older self.
Hey, you two are the team. You can handle this. I gotta find a way home.
I need both of you to rescue the prisoner. Wherever Cobra's keeping him, I'm sure they're guarding him very heavily.
He's one of our greatest heroes. Someone with the power to change the world. Someone who...
Come on! How great can this guy be if he's stupid enough to get caught by a bunch of snake people?
He's you, Virgil.
That's right. So Static is a little bit taken aback, doesn't quite know what to make of it, but Batman and the younger Batman, Terry and Static, head out into Gotham to chase down a lead. Terry informs Virgil as they arrive in downtown Gotham that they need to get out of Gotham. Thankfully, I guess Virgil, somewhere in his coat, has has all of his clothes, including, like, where does he keep those Tims?
Right,
those Tims he's wearing, like those are heavy shoes. I don't know where those fit in the jacket, but maybe they also fold up like the Static Saucer does. I don't know. Maybe that's something Gear invented for him. But anyway, Static or Virgil and Terry go hit the streets in their civvies. Terry gets a little costume redesign here. He's got like a black turtleneck and a blue coat with the popped collar, very stylish. And as they hit the streets, they say they're going to meet an informant that Bruce knows. But as Terry kind of goes to get the lay of the land, he notices that Virgil has seemingly run off. And as he comes across him again, Virgil says that they don't need to wait for that informant because Virgil got bored, and so he went around searching, and he found a guy who says he'll lead them right to Cobra. And of course, it's one of the Joker's gang. And Terry is suspicious, but Virgil insists, so they follow him down a dark alley into a dark room, only for the lights to flip on. And once again, the Batman, for not the first or last time, Terry is accosted by a bunch of Jokers, and they are under attack. Thankfully, Virgil is able to disarm all of their various. These are like a lot more gadgety than I think the Jokers we've seen in other episodes. They have they have a lot of like more Joker themed weapons, including like giant anvils and like party poppers that turn into gas and
acid
like a lot of
pies.
Right, they got a lot going on here, and an attempted electric joy buzzing, which does not go the way of the Jokers, as Virgil and Terry finally take them all down. However, as Terry points out, all of this was just a distraction to try to get them mugged, and in the meantime, they've probably missed the actual informant, and so now they're kind of back to square one. Meanwhile, we see that they are going ahead. The government is going ahead with this supposed prisoner exchange. We see the warden taking, along with several guards, taking the Cobra leader out of his cell, and he informs him indirectly that Static is the one that Cobra has their hands on, which makes the leader very happy. And he decides he's going to go to. He's not going to wait around for the exchange, as one of the guards on the truck that's transporting him to wherever the location is for the exchange, in fact, is a Cobra sleeper agent, and he splices himself. Oh, that's the thing. We reintroduced splicing, and now instead of it being like a medical procedure, you like huff gas and you become a splicer.
Sure.
Sure, why not? That might, again, we haven't covered every episode of Beyond, so maybe they do that in that show too, and I'm just forgetting. But anyway, so the spliced out Cobra sycophant helps the leader escape. We also discover at this point that the leader is Spider-Man and can crawl. He is
snake.
Yes, he's slithering on the bottom of a bridge. I don't quite know how he's doing that, but they think the police think that he's jumped off into the river below, but he's actually climbing across the bridge and makes it to an airfield, steals some sort of cool looking jet thing.
This is 759er requesting permission to take off. Got a clearance yet? Over.
It's gonna be another couple minutes, 759er. We got some heavy traffic coming in. Over. You okay? Over.
Just fine. But I don't think I'll wait for clearance. Over and out.
Hey, stop!
It's me. I'll be there in a few minutes. Leader, praise be. What should we do with Static? Don't touch him. Static's mine.
And he's off to Cobra headquarters. And meanwhile, Batman and Static kind of have it out a little bit. They're frustrated. Terry rightfully kind of scolds him for wasting all of their time and making it so they're back to square one. So Static's kind of had enough and decides he needs to go somewhere to think. And so he flies. This is another question. How close are Gotham and Dakota together? Like, I need to see this map because apparently it's within Static saucer flying distance. As Static flies himself over to the old abandoned gas station of Solitude, remarking that it looks just about how he left it.
That's right. Yeah. Static realizes that he, after taking a little bit of chiding from Batman himself about how the place was a dump, notices that the secret underground passageway that this leads to, Static maybe didn't do too badly for himself. And the humble outside is more of a detractor for anyone that would suspect that underneath of it is this giant compound. So as Static and Batman begin exploring the compound, they stumble upon what appears to be a futuristic shock box. So he picks up the shock box and presses some buttons on it. And who should appear but Future Gear?
Know what this is?
Looks sort of like a shock box, but... Gear? What happened to you? You got so... big.
It's a recorded hologram.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's like those things people used to have, answering machines.
So this is an old message?
Mm-hmm.
Verge, meet me at Dakota Platform 247 right away. It's an emergency.
Tuesday, 7:40 a.m.
That was this morning. I thought you said Gear was on the other side of the world.
He is. It's a secret mission. Only the old man knew.
Then they must have faked this somehow. This is how they tricked me. I mean, him. Any idea where this Platform 247 is?
No, but I know someone who does.
But this Gear message was left just the day prior saying that they needed to meet at a certain platform. And they're sort of confused as to what the platform is that they're referring to, specifically Platform 247. So while Terry isn't familiar with what Platform 247 is, he suggests that they talk to Bruce. Once they are able to get back and talk with Bruce, Bruce reveals that Platform 247 is one of these, and we see him early on in the episode, which is the clue that this is something clearly that would be important later on. But there are these floating, it looks like floating government buildings above Gotham, which before. But we learn that these are platforms that used to belong to the U.S. military, and Bruce says are now abandoned. But of course, as Static and Batman investigate, they learn that, of course, this is where Cobra is indeed holding Static, the older Static, at that. So once they're in there, they're able to prevent the Cobra leader, who is also huffed gas to be half snake at this point. And he's prepared to kill the older Static, but that's when Batman and younger Static jump in to stop him. It appears, at least initially, that the Cobra leader is going to overpower both of our heroes, which allows the Cobra leader, almost called him commander, Cobra leader, to invite the army of other Cobra agents that are on board to come attack them. Static is able to close the blast doors in order to prevent them from coming in, but at this point, they're still both overwhelmed by Cobra leader. Batman throws some knockout gas towards the Cobra leader, which doesn't have very much effect on him until it is, of course, supercharged by Static. He electrifies the gas. I'm not a scientist, but I don't know if you can electrify gas. But Static does
it, perhaps. Would that do anything? I don't know.
It's a good question. Let's ask Google after this and find out. Yes, but so they're able to at least initially get the upper hand, and that allows Static the ability to get some reinforcements in by the way of his older self, freeing older Static, and we finally get the reveal of what the older Static looks like in all of this. He comes out and has this Super Saiyan type moment where he supercharges up and is able to defeat the Cobra leader, knocking him down, as well as the oncoming Cobra army. So it's at this point that now that Cobra is defeated, it appears that everything is well and good. Static goes up to his older self and begins asking him questions. But just before he can ask any of them, he begins to slowly disappear and fade back. Mr. Stark, he's not feeling too good as he begins fading back into his time zone. And so he is able to ask himself one specific question and what he should do. What his greatest power is, what he should do, and he says, believe in yourself.
I can see why you didn't think I could be him.
Actually, I'm starting to see the resemblance.
I have so many questions.
Don't worry. Everything's gonna be fine.
Hey, what's happening?
You must be going back.
What's gonna happen to me? What should I do?
Believe in yourself. That's your greatest power.
Back in the Batcave with Batman and Robin, who have brought in gear to assist them in getting the time machine to bring Static back to the present. Static mentions very excitedly that he just met his future self as well as future Batman. He begins to try and regale Batman with information about his future. Batman says he'd rather not know, and that he tells Gear at this point that he'll be fine, but he recommends that maybe Gear lay off the French fries from now on. And that's where we end this week's episode, Liam.
Right, a little Gear body shaming, and then we head home. So yeah, this is an interesting one because I'm not quite sure the lesson learned is believe in yourself, I guess.
Yeah. I'm confused by it too, because it very much felt like we were setting up this. I mean, I guess it's sort of I don't know. I
guess the idea is there's the line at the start, like you said, about where he's talking to Robin and he's like, he's hard on you because he's trying to teach you, and boy, I wish I had my own mentor. And then it's like, well, he was his own mentor, I guess is the answer.
Well, yeah, and he says it to Terry too, like when they're in the Batmobile,
right?
The rides, he talks about how lucky he is, and he's having these sort of envious conversations about not having a mentor, but then like it's not even like you don't need a mentor. He's just like, believe in yourself, which I guess is sort of the same thing, but feels like I have to bend over backwards or bend into a couple different shapes in order for that to be to make sense. So
I just think of any time you get to the end of the moral of the story and the moral is believe in yourself, it feels like we had the idea of wouldn't it be neat if we put Static in Batman Beyond and then we worked backwards from there to get to like what's the lesson learned or what's the arc of the character.
Correct.
Because it's like, it's not like, I guess like Batman Terry learns that actually Static is a pretty good hero even when he's young.
Right.
And Static learns to that, you know, even though he doesn't have an older mentor figure teaching him the ropes, that he's, as long as he trusts in himself, he'll be fine. Like, it's fine. It's just very bare bones. Like, it's just very simplistic. So it feels like, well, we want to see Static in the future. We want to see him fight Terry for a minute. We want to see the Jokers. We want to see Splicers. And then and then we want Static to meet his future self. Like, so it feels like we did all of that. And at the end, we're like, and also he learned to believe in himself. Like, it feels very tacked on, if I'm honest.
Agreed. No, that's why I honestly struggled when I was scoring this episode's plot. It's fun. We talked about, it's very, I think the Once and Future thing overall story was better. We talked about last week, there were some issues that you and I had with it. Sure. I think you more so than I did, but there were some things that we were like, this could have been different. This could have been, we could have seen more cool things. I feel like this is the opposite. Like, we see the cool things. We see young Static battling Terry McGinnis Batman. Like, we have a little fight. Then they get to fight sort of side by side, and fight the Cobra gang. And they have this fisticuffs where the two of them have to sort of figure things out, fighting the Joker gang without their super suits. Like, okay, cool. But the plot of the how and the why, like I said at the beginning, I think the idea that the news reporter talks about having a supervillain whose whole thing is we're going to help villains from modern times escape to the future so that they can avoid, sentencing or the ramifications for their own, bad choices here in the present time. That Static's villains versus Batman Beyond would have been hella cool. Like, Eban versus, like, Batman Beyond, like, sounds incredible. Like, give me that. This, while it's fun to see them, the modern Static team up with future Batman, and then ultimately we get the first, what was canonically the first glimpse at a future Static. It's just, I don't know, the story itself just kind of falls flat based on he gets returned to his time. Sure, he gets like a couple of things. He finds out that he's super cool and he has a kid in the future also, and he's revered by many people, and that helps. That's how he gets to that point. Is, I guess, he's told to believe in himself, and this is the thing that causes himself to, like, the time thing that helps him to reach that end. I don't know, but it feels like we're like having to fill in a lot of blanks here, and it's just not. I don't love it plot wise.
It's just very simplistic in a way that I think even for Static episodes, which I know can sometimes, if we talked about, had more of a edutainment lesson to be learned in some of the episodes. But here I just wasn't, other than the cool factor of all we've already talked about, which is a lot of fun. And it's, I almost wish, maybe also if there was a more interesting villain. Like, it's sort of implied that Cobra Leader and future Static have beef. Like, he's real jazzed when he finds out it's Static that they have captured.
Right.
But, like, that doesn't really mean anything. So maybe if, as you mentioned, the whole thing about time code helping villains escape, if, like, I don't know, Eban was running around in future Gotham and Terry, and maybe he teams up with one of the Beyond villains,
right?
Or something like that. And maybe that's more interesting or more fun. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's something like there's concepts even within the episode that maybe would have been more fun to focus on than what we got. But like I said, it's still fun. So I ended up settling on just a run of the mill 5 out of 10 for my plot score.
Yeah, I gave it the exact same score myself, actually. 5 out of 10. It's kind of like what could have been. I mean, it's a cool concept as we talked about. It's just maybe not the best execution for why we did it, other than, hey, this would be cool to do another crossover with another DCAU show. Yeah. So, good idea, just not the best execution is probably my final ruling.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Liam, let's move on to our next category, which is going to be visuals and animation. And as you mentioned, we had animation services this week by Dong Wu. And we had our director, Vic Dal Chalet, I think how we're going with our pronunciation. And if that's incorrect, please forgive us if it is the wrong pronunciation. But our director here was also responsible for a few other episodes from what I saw. He did Out of Africa, Linked, Kidnapped, and then this episode here. So a couple of others on their list as far as director credits. But as far as the visuals go for the episode, I think the most interesting thing to me right off the bat is that we have I thought it was interesting the choice to have Static show up to help Batman and Robin, and he's not wearing his jacket. No jacket needed. No jacket needed for it. I was just like, what happened to his jacket? Why is he wearing his jacket? Is it hot? Is it a summer day?
Right.
Like, did he lose it in a fight that we didn't see on screen?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's happening here? But no, that's not the only exciting thing here. Of course, we have lots of interesting visuals once we get sent to the future. I think everybody looks pretty on model as far as integrating the Batman Beyond cast. Both Bruce and Terry look on model. The new Batman Adventures style version of Batman and Robin, who are both used for this episode, they looked a little. I don't know. I guess it's probably similar to the Joker episode of Static, but I would say they do look just like it's just like a little bit off from what I'm used to seeing those characters. They just kind of put them in the Static universe, I guess.
Yeah, Robin. I think in the season 2 episode where Batman and Robin appeared, I think they do a better job of taking those designs and melding them better with the Static art style.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in this one, I don't really have a problem with this Batman, which we've seen before. They've done the TNBA style Batman in the season 3 and 4 style already. They also did the Justice League Batman in between his 2 TNBA Batman appearances, ironically.
Right.
But yes, so Batman looks mostly fine. Maybe his jaw is like a little squarer and a little longer. But overall, I didn't have a problem with that. Yeah, Robin, it feels like, okay, they tried to go back and do more like the TNBA model. The hair is a little bit more spiky, but also make him look older, because obviously he's supposed to be somewhat older than he was in TNBA. Again, I'll leave it to the timeline aficionados to figure out exactly how old he's supposed to be in this episode. But so they've kind of feels like they've made like his limbs a little bit longer, but his head's still kind of like a little small then for his body now. I don't know. He just looked kind of gangly and a little bit awkward. But hey, maybe he's just going through an awkward growth spurt, I guess. I don't know what's going on with the Robin. He still fits in the red and black suit though. So he hasn't grown that much. But everybody looks fine. I like that time code design again. Would have been fun to see this guy running around a little bit more.
Agreed.
And then we get just a ton of the Beyond stuff. As mentioned, Terry gets new street clothes for this one. All the we get to see a bunch of the series Jokers back. As mentioned in the Once and Future thing, they went with the movie Jokers, so we get to see the guy with the jester hat and the girl in like the pink dress, and the big dude with the green hair, and so it's like classic Joker's classic back. Although the Bruce Timm voiced one is not present for whatever reason.
The Jokers, yes.
Yeah, J-Man is not present here in this group.
Correct.
But yeah, so like there's a lot of fun there. As mentioned, all of their like wacky gadgets that they have. That's kind of a fun sequence of Virgil kind of just being, kind of slowly figuring out all of the gimmicks, and then destroying their weapons, and then zapping the guy with the joy buzzer is a fun bit. And then I do like the breathalyzer splicer thing. Like I said, I think it's like, as a concept, I think it's kind of strange, because previously it was like a metaphor for plastic surgery, and now it's a metaphor for drugs, I guess.
Sure.
So maybe it was both. It's been a while since we reviewed that original Splicer episode, but it felt more like a metaphor for surgery in that.
I think it definitely was a plastic surgery metaphor.
Yeah, like cosmetic issues. But I mean, the thing where he does the breathalyzer and then his eyes open and they turn into the snake eyes is kind of a neat visual gag. And there's some fun stuff. And Cobra's army of guys in diapers and is fun. I assume a lot of these are reused assets from the upcoming to be reviewed Curse of Cobra 2-parter, because they also have like a couple of like snake man soldiers that they fight, and then a whole bunch of guys in big white diapers, and then some of the green men, the green scaly guys as well. So like other than that, it just feels like it's a lot of just like, oh, it's them. Old Bruce looks svelter to me. It's like old Bruce was on Ozempic before this episode. Like he's a little bit possible. He's standing up a little straighter, and he looks a little, I don't know if that was just like a point of reference to make him different and compared to regular Batman. He's less wide. But yeah, I was like, oh, he looks skinnier here than he does in Beyond or in Justice League. But
Static remarks that he's also shorter, apparently.
Yes.
He shrunk in his old age.
Yes, I guess so. And then I guess the main event though is the future Static, which we only get about 30 seconds of, but like that design as well. I like the dreads, and the gold mask is really cool. I feel like what I focused on, the gold domino mask, I think is a really cool touch.
A little bit of black. Is it Black Lightning, you think, influence?
Yeah.
A little bit of,
or soul power in this universe, I guess.
Yes, correct. Yeah, exactly.
But it's not red and green. But yeah, I think there's definitely a little Black Lightning. Yes. And it's very, the costume is very, shout out to Kenner, Lightning Strike Batman. Saying it's like a black suit, but and the lightning bolts are all blue, and he still has the gold emblem on his chest, but he has like the built-in lightning all over the suit, which I think is kind of a cool touch. So yeah, I like that design. And then they kind of visualize how powerful he's become in some neat ways, where he just kind of, he barely raises his hand, and then just this giant bolt of lightning comes flying out and knocks out like 15 guys at once. He also gets to do his own version of the Batman no look knockout of a guy where he just pokes his finger backwards and zaps a guy. So they do a kind of a fun, quick, visual gags to just kind of get over exactly how leveled up this version of Static is, and even that initial bit where they free him from the suit, he goes, I think it's very very Super Saiyan, I think, where he does the big power up where all the energy pulsates around him, his hair kind of starts to stand up, and then he fires out the first big blast or whatever. So they do a pretty fun job. Again, kind of wish you could have gotten to see more of him. I know that's kind of the point, is that he's not supposed to learn that much about his future self, but it's like, man, that version of Static is really awesome. I wish we could have seen more of him.
Yeah. Speaking of the Super Saiyan bit, I did see on the DCAU wiki that the person that was responsible for that was storyboarding was Larry Houston, who said that was a direct influence, that he wanted to make it very Super Saiyan influenced. So that's why we ended up getting that sequence, which is probably the most memorable sequence of the episode. So, for sure, very, very cool, a cool moment. I actually really dig that they kind of kept it hidden. Like you hear that you're going to see the future Static, then he's kind of just completely silhouetted for that final scene up until he's freed, and then you kind of get this slow burn reveal from shoes up, and you kind of see him power up, and that you finally get the pin across the domino mask, and you finally get to see the full character as he goes into the supercharged mode, and just a really, really neat way to do the reveal there. Kind of building up the expectation for, all right, well, what's the future Static going to look like, and then you get the reveal of just kind of how badass he actually looks. So this future Static design, really, really fun, really cool. I don't know that we talked about last week's design. So he's 65 in that episode. The time frame here, he just ages very well, I suppose, because if this is
Terry and Once and Future Thing says they jumped 50 years into the future, and Bruce in this episode says 40 years. So maybe he's got about 10 years on. This is 10 years younger than the Once and Future Thing Static.
Still,
55 Static.
Yeah, still looking pretty good. I mean, both Statics looking good for their age. Still, this one even more so, I'd say. But I the only other sequences that I've really enjoyed, there's the sequence of the young Static riding in the Batmobile with Terry, and they're having this conversation. So we get, again, just things that really made this feel like you're back in the Beyond world, making it authentic. You have them riding in there. You have the red glow over everything, the red hue of the inside of the Batmobile. It sort of just covering our characters as they're having these deep conversations, and Terry is sort of letting off some steam about his irritation with some of this younger version of Static. And I wish, we don't get as much hand-to-hand combat, but I still think that little fight scene with the Jokers is fun. I think our final battle was fun enough. Having our young and older Static do a little bit more battling together on the same side, I think would have been interesting, but it feels like that reveal was like what they were really working towards as far as the visuals were concerned there. I think that's pretty much all I had as far as visuals are concerned here. So I ended up giving animation and visuals a 7 out of 10. I think it's good overall. I don't have a lot to complain about as far as things other than what you mentioned is sort of like the Robin look sort of took me out of things early on, but he's only in it for probably 90 seconds maybe max
right
time. So not enough to give me a full negative. There were a couple of production inconsistencies in the Joker's scene that were worth noting, but nothing that completely ruined the episode for me. So 7 out of 10 was my final score.
Yeah, I went 8 out of 10, just 1 point higher. I think I just got wrapped up in, again, the fun of seeing Virgil interact with all these Beyond characters is a lot of fun. I don't disagree with any of the critiques that you've had, but yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. I like the future gear is just Tron. He's just a Tron guy. Like, I think that's kind of a fun gag.
Tron.
That's right. He's a thick boy.
Husky Tron.
He's like the Tron guy from that YouTube video from the early 2000s or late 2000s, I guess. That went viral. But he's I think that's fun. The future shock Vox is like the upgraded gas station is kind of a fun sequence as well as a way to discover that. So I think like I said, I got wrapped up in that. The opening sequence, like you mentioned, with Static tearing the roof off of the warehouse and Batman and Robin swooping down is fun as well. So yeah, there's a lot of fun just visual stuff in this episode that I think really lifts it up a little bit.
There we go. I also didn't know where to put this one, so before we go into music, I will just say I had an absolutely mind-blowing moment today. I was watching this episode, and I don't. We are well into season 3 in our reviews of Batman Beyond, obviously. So we've heard the word schway about, I don't know, 1,000 times or so. So we know schway is future
Hmm.
slang for something that's cool or what have you. It's neat, it's cool. Well, that's the exclamation that they use. So I know that you can look it up, and I'm sure in comics and everything it is spelled Schway, schway, but the closed captioning put the uh spelled it Shui as in feng shui today. And my mind just blew. I was like, wait a minute, because feng shui means like arranging things to create harmony or a flow of energy, or it's putting objects in a like way that the energy feels right. So like I was like, wait a minute, is this where the origins of this word came from? Does shui just mean feng shui? Like things all it has great energy and the energy's really working here. Everything's in its proper place. I My mind was blown. I was like, I've never thought shui as feng shui before until today.
Unbelievable. You have blown my mind.
It's like I just thought it was some weird word that people make. No, maybe it is, and maybe this was closed captioning who didn't understand that shui isn't feng shui. However, my mind was blown either way. So
Well, as we like to say, I think that's now the canon explanation until proven otherwise. That shui, however it's spelled, may in fact have its origins as feng shui.
there we go. All right, Liam, let's move on to our next category, which is going to be music. And as you mentioned, I believe, is it Max Gauss? Is that the
I believe that's how we're going with the pronunciation. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I think the credits just say Gauss, but I believe Max Gauss is responsible for the music here. Yeah, so some really cool musical moments here. I think the first thing is there's a time traveling theme, which is just the Batman Beyond theme played on like a funky sound from a synthesizer, and
Yes.
it plays it as static is going through the time tube, and like you hear it playing, and it's like this descending, and you're like, wait a minute, that's the Beyond theme. And then they play it again when he's returning to his own time later on. But then you also hear in the fight sequence, I think it's in the fight sequence between Terry and Static when he
Yes.
first shows up, you hear the Beyond theme
Yeah,
play.
there's like this is like boss fight music. It's like if it's like an 8-bit Batman Beyond boss fight between Static and Terry. That's what the music vibe to me goes with. Like it's like the drum machine mixed with this very like whiny synthesizer playing the Batman Beyond main theme, the Christopher Carter theme.
Yeah, yeah, it's super neat. Um, and then so we don't get a lot of traditional, what I would call Beyond music. We don't get heavy guitars or the stand or typical deep bass and percussion led tracks. However, when we are introduced to the Cobra leader for the first time, as he's being led out of his cell by these government officials, there is this deep percussion based theme that sounds very militaristic, of a snare drum being beaten as they're marching through this compound. So I did pick up on that. There is one track that has lyrics to it. It was incredibly difficult to hear what the lyrics are. I did hear something something future, and that was going on in the background. So I can only imagine there's some sort of future theme to whatever the lyrics were, but it was indiscernible, and closed captioning did not pick up the lyrics this week, so I was not able to get those all written down. But yeah, and then as I said, we get the Beyond theme again at the end, and we also get a pretty uh, exciting theme with the reveal of Static that I picked up on also at the end, as we get the future Static reveal. That was pretty fun also. Some stuff in between in the fight sequences also with the Jokers, and then between when Cobra Leader is fighting young Static and Batman Beyond as well. But yes, really strong music this week, and some really neat things done with some of the more traditional themes that we're used to, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you said, not a ton of traditional staticky music. I do feel like they tried to lean more into the Beyond style of music a little bit. You get a little bit more drum machine and some guitar brought in, but like you said, yeah, we got a lot of it. We got this kind of like funky synthesizer thing going on, even in some of the action sequences. But yeah, I think they do a pretty good job overall with the music. I don't have a lot of specific notes beyond what we already tackled. But yeah, I ended up giving music a pretty strong 7 out of 10. I think it's a lot of fun, and maybe they won me over with the like I said, the Batman Beyond sort of boss fight music that we hear a few times throughout the episode when he's doing that, as well as the time travel, the time tunnel music as well is great. It's great fun. We don't get much, or if we get any of it, we don't get much of the like the dancey Danny Elfman Batman theme that we've heard in his previous Static appearances, unfortunately for Bruce's Batman. But yeah, it is. I think we get it a little bit when old Bruce walks into the fray. We hear like the dun, 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 like just for about just real quick they throw that in, but you don't get the full dance, the whole the bat dance, if you will. But yeah, it's still a pretty enjoyable run for music this week, I thought.
Yeah, I gave it an 8 out of 10 myself. So pretty strong overall. I like a lot of the things that they did. And I think maybe the only thing that could have made this a little bit better is getting like a Beyond version of a Static theme or something like that. Melding the two styles together would have been interesting. Getting a rocked up version maybe of the Static theme would have been interesting to hear. But it's still very, very strong overall. All right, Liam, let's wrap things up here with our final category of the week, and that is going to be our voice acting. And some familiar names, of course, on our list here, and some of our series regulars, because it takes place mostly in the future. So we do have a couple of series regulars, but they're relegated to rather minor roles, but certainly worth talking about as we discuss our voice actors and actresses for this week's episode.
That's right. So briefly, we'll mention we have Shane Sweet voicing Robin this time for his couple of lines here, playing a slightly older, as mentioned, Tim Drake. His only time playing Robin. I think previously in Static it had been Eli Marenthal who had played the role, and of course Matt Valencia in the original Anna TNBA run. So. He does a good enough job of sounding like a slightly aged up Tim Drake. He gets a little bit to do just because he's a little bit cranky. He's in his feelings over not getting name checked by the news reporter, and by Batman just kind of being generally unappreciative of his work here. So, which is interesting because we don't really get to see a ton of Tim and Bruce at odds in this show. We hear about it a little bit in later episodes in Return of the Joker, but we don't really ever see these two at odds the way we see, the way we got to see Dick and Bruce at odds. So it's like, yeah, just, we know how it ends up for Bruce and how it ends up for Tim, and this is just like, hey, these are a couple little breadcrumbs we dropped here, which is a fun little bit.
His line, he says he learned science from Nobel laureates, martial arts from kung fu masters, and manners from a crocodile. That line so funny, so good. Talking about Batman, of course.
Absolutely.
Too Static. So yeah. He sounds like an aged up version of our previous Tim Drake. So not bad. He doesn't have a ton to do because he's kind of relegated to just that opening sequence. But I think he does a fine job.
Absolutely. And then briefly we have Dorian Harewood, who we've talked about a million times on this show as the warden of the prison, who's taking the Cobra leader to do the prisoner exchange. He's Ron Troop in Superman. He's Dan Riley in The Forgotten. And he's also Jim Tate as in the he's Armory in the Batman Beyond episode. So he gets around. Also the voice of Taft on the Tick, most importantly. So any chance to throw that in is always worth it. But funny enough, his scene partner voicing the Cobra leader, Mr. Lance Henriksen, which this might not be someone that a lot of folks know by name, but if you're a fan of, I would say, 70s and 80s sci-fi, he has the distinction of, I believe, to this point in history, being the only man on screen to be killed by a Terminator, a Predator, and an alien.
Wow.
So that's quite the triple threat there for Mr. Henriksen. But yeah, great sci-fi character actor here. He's got some good, like I said, they don't give him a lot beyond that he's just a generically evil man who likes snakes. Mm-hmm. But he's sinister. Like he does his best with what he's given, I think.
Yeah, I bought that he was evil. Like that's all that I was asked. I feel like was asked of him for this, and I bought that he was up to no good.
I buy that he's an evil snake pervert. It's fine. What else do you need? Yeah, and then we get to our. We do have Jason Marsden briefly. He's playing both the Cobra sleeper agent who helps the leader escape on the bridge, and then of course he does briefly get to play both future Richie, future Gear, and present day Gear, who's repairs the time machine and pulls Static back. Not much for him to do this week, but thankfully we had a couple of other voice actors filling the void of Static's companions this week. We do, in fact, for the second week in a row, in fact, have Kevin Conroy as Batman and playing both young Batman or present day Batman and old Bruce Wayne. So another fun week to hear him, the distinctions that he makes when he's playing the older Bruce Wayne versus the younger one. He gets a little bit, he does have, maybe this is one of my favorite bits. We already talked about the Robin side of this when Mr. Sweet as Robin is complaining about not getting respect, and Batman looks up and just says, "Get me my toolkit, boy wonder," is I think delivered with such tremendous dry wit that I that line is like burned into my brain as like one of, I think, the funnier bits of dialogue that Kevin Conroy's Batman ever got to say. Is "Get me my toolkit, boy wonder."
Very funny.
But yeah, not much for him to do as the older Bruce Wayne. He does have the little bit where they're all kind of arguing. He and Terry are arguing in the cave, and he hears him make some crack about oh, hey, I'm almost old enough to drive. He's like, yeah, that's Static for sure. Like, other than that, he's kind of just there to be an exposition guy. He's like, here's why there's a big floating platform in the middle of Gotham City.
Right. Here's your mission, a secret mission that you have to go
right.
on. Like, yeah.
Right. Otherwise, he's Mr. Exposition, but that's still fun to hear him again get to play both versions of Bruce Wayne, and then of course also coming back to voice his version of Batman is Will Friedle as Terry. And again, it feels hard not to talk about both of our main actors, so I'll also throw in Phil LaMarr as Static here. Most of this episode rests on their sort of forced, unlikely allies, sort of forced buddy cop routine. Terry being sort of thrown into the role now of being like the experienced one who's not really, he's very serious. He's very no nonsense. He's upset at Virgil for going off half-cocked on his own and for costing them valuable time. He's very dismissive and kind of argumentative with Virgil. And then on the other side, you have Phil LaMarr kind of, trying to stand up for himself, but also still having these doubts because he, as mentioned, the sort of razor thin motivation of not having a mentor to fall back on like Terry does. So like that's kind of the buddy cop thing, I guess, and the friction between them is kind of the main support beam for the episode as far as voice acting goes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it weirdly works so well. I mean, I guess it's not weird because we know the talent level of both of these voice actors, and in their own roles had to carry their own shows and have in the case of Mr. LaMarr, decades of experience on various different programs. So it's maybe shouldn't be as surprising as it is, but they do have chemistry that works really well together. I feel like it works for both the, like, that first scene where they're kind of jawing back and forth as Batman doesn't recognize who Static is and thinks he's this person that broke into the Batcave, through their little heart-to-heart that they're having in the Batmobile, to, him getting frustrated at Virgil kind of falling for this trick that the Joker's play on him, to ultimately sort of them teaming up and kind of, making up at the end to take down Cobra. So yeah, I think maybe it shouldn't have been as surprising that they worked really well together based on their talent levels, but it's really strong. I think it was really it in some ways caught me off guard to hear both of them talking together, and it just kind of it worked. It felt pretty normal. It felt like this could have not that I would have wanted to see a future Batman and present day Static buddy cop show, but seeing these two actors probably interact more often would have been interesting, I'd say. So yeah, strong performances from both of our voice actors are leads for the episode for sure.
Absolutely. And yeah, so I think for all those reasons, I ended up settling on a pretty strong, off the backs of Philemard, Will Friedle especially. I gave it a pretty strong 8 out of 10 for my voice acting score.
Yep, I gave it the same exact score, actually, 8 out of 10. So we were thinking the exact same way there for that one. A lot of strong performances this week, and a lot of good actors and actresses. So yeah, excited to total things up here, Liam, as we come to the end of this week's episode. And totaling up my score, I end up with a 28 out of 40. What about you?
Yeah, I ended up with the exact same score, even though we didn't match in every category. The final score ends up lining up perfectly at a 28 for me as well.
All right, so now we get to talk about this episode as far as rewatchability is concerned, and I think, for me at least, my recommendation is going to be, this is a rewatchability. This is important for a couple of reasons. It's a crossover episode. Those are always very important. It deals with a reoccurring villain in the case of Batman Beyond that comes back, shows up a couple of different times. We get what canonically is the first appearance of future Static, which of course plays into the episode that we covered last week. And so I'd say, for the fun of it, I think it's 2 thumbs up, even if maybe the plot itself sort of lets things down here. I think I'd give it 2 thumbs up because it's fun, and it's there are some parts here that are kind of integral to the DCAU as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's another important in the static DC team up family. And yeah, Static is a different person once he's come back and sees the and sees his future self standing, and that kind of lines up again where we see Static in the Justice League episode we covered last week, where he's standing shoulder to shoulder. They even kind of make mention in this episode when he's asking the three people he asks about are Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and Static. So you really kind of set up that as he's gotten older, he's very much standing tall and standing side by side with the heavy hitters of this universe now. So yeah, this is kind of an important building block for establishing what the future Static means to the DCAU as a whole. So that's cool to see.
Absolutely, Liam. So with that, we'll begin to wrap things up. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in this week. Don't forget, we'd love your support for the podcast, and there's several different ways to do that. You can start by subscribing on your favorite podcast app and leaving a 5-star review if you listen on one of the more popular ones like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can also, of course, leave a paragraph review about what you like about the podcast. And if we read it on the air and you're within the continental United States, we'll even bribe you for doing so with a special gift. So if you'd like a little gift from us as a thank you, go ahead and stop what you're doing and leave that review on Apple Podcasts. You can also, if you're listening on Spotify, participate in our weekly poll or comment on the episode. We'll read those. And we love interacting with fans, speaking of reading things. So if you're interested in interacting with the pod, jump on Twitter and tweet at us, or whatever they call that now on X, and let us know what your thoughts are on this episode, last week's episode, the current goings-on of the DC animated universe and or anything DC Comics. We're always open for a conversation, both on Twitter and also on Instagram at DCAU Review. You can also, of course, follow us. We are on some of those other ancillary Twitter stand-ins at DCAU Review, Threads, Blue Sky. So if you're on there, you can certainly interact with us. We don't check them as often. We're completely transparent with that. But hey, we will eventually, Liam will log in one day and get back to you on there if you choose to interact with us that way. You can also support the podcast if you'd like to by becoming a monthly supporter. We thank our monthly supporters for supporting the podcast and helping us to do what we do each and every single week as a little encouragement, buying us coffee or buying us a little meal to keep us going as we're either editing the pod here or logging into the computer each and every week to do this. So we thank you for our monthly supporters. Join them by checking out the link in the show notes, or you can also pick yourself up a piece of merchandise, also available in the show notes, and that supports the podcast directly as well. Liam, we will continue with a future-themed month here as we celebrate not only what life will look like 50 years from now, whenever now is, but also, of course, the anniversary of Batman Beyond. We are the 25-year anniversary of Batman Beyond, and the Batman Beyond content is dwindling. However, we have just enough to continue this month with a few more reviews as we will march towards the holidays here with some more future reviews of Batman Beyond, kicking off with next week's review.
That's right, and to look ahead, thankfully we have a two-parter Beyond, which means we can't break it up with a Zeta week this month. So it's just Static was our way to get was our canary in the coal mine to get through one more futuristic month to celebrate Batman Beyond without having to break into more Zetas just yet. But there's always next year for our favorite android. But yes, next week we are going back into the world of Batman Beyond, and picking up where we left off with the episode Betrayal, which is the term of the big time, the big gray Hulk guy who has some ties to Terry's past. So we're picking up with that episode next week.
Peter Gabriel's favorite villain returns next week. Big time. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you join us then. But until then, I'm Cal.
And I'm Liam.
We'll talk to you on that next episode of the DC.
Adios.